All right, let's get right into it. We all have these big goals, right? We want to make huge changes in our lives, and we usually think that means we need to make some kind of massive, heroic effort. But what if I told you the real secret to getting incredible results actually lies in making changes that are so small they're almost invisible? We're going to unpack this whole idea by looking at one of the most amazing turnarounds in the history of sports.
So picture this. For over a century, the British cycling team wasn't just bad, they were the poster child for mediocrity. I mean, we're talking about 100 years of being completely unremarkable. They'd won a handful of medals in all that time, and they were so consistently underwhelming that, failure was just kind of their brand.
I mean, this really shows you just how bad things were. Can you imagine being so notoriously awful that a major bike company literally refuses your money? They wouldn't sell their bikes to the team because they were scared that having British Cycling use their gear would actually damage their reputation. That's not just losing, that's rock bottom.
So what turned it all around? Well, a new coach named Dave Brailsford came on board, and he had this, it was a totally different philosophy. He called it the aggregation of marginal gains. And the idea was actually brilliantly simple. He said, let's just break down every single tiny thing that goes into riding a bike, and then let's just improve each of those little things by 1%. They weren't looking for one giant breakthrough, they were hunting for hundreds of tiny, tiny improvements.
So did all those little 1% tweaks actually work? Well, look at this number, 178. Over the next 10 years, that's how many world championships the British cyclists won. They completely dominated the Olympics. They won the Tour de France 5 times. This wasn't just a little bit of improvement, this was a total, jaw-dropping transformation, and it was all built on the power of those tiny games.
And here's the most important part. This incredible story, it's not really about cycling. It's about a fundamental truth of how success works. It's the power of what author James Clear calls atomic habits, these tiny, consistent actions that compound over time into unbelievable results. And the key to unlocking this power is a really simple 4-step system. So let's break down those 4 laws. Okay, law number 1 is all about the cue. That's the little trigger that kicks off any habit. And the secret here is to make the cues for your good habits totally, completely obvious. Like, you can't miss them. It's all about making your intentions front and center.
Here's a perfect example. In Japan, they have this amazing railway system, right? And the train operators use a safety system called pointing and calling. They will literally point at a signal and say out loud, "Signal is green." Now, it might look a little silly, but by taking a check that's normally unconscious and making it a physical, conscious action, they cut errors by an incredible 85%. It just proves that making the cue obvious changes everything.
So that brings up a really interesting question. Let's say you want to start a new habit, like working out. What do you think is more important, getting super pumped up and motivated, or having a very specific plan?
Well, some researchers actually tested this, and the results are just wow. Take a look. The control group, they had a 38% success rate. The group that got a big motivational speech, their success rate was actually a little bit worse, only 35%. But the third group, all they did was write down exactly when and where they were going to exercise, and an unbelievable 91% of them actually did it. And this leads us to such a powerful idea. Having a clear plan, an obvious cue like, I will work out for 20 minutes on Monday at 5 p.m. in my living room, that is so much more powerful than just vaguely wanting to get fit. So often we think the problem is our motivation, but the real problem is just a lack of clarity. All right, on to law number 2. Make it attractive. This one taps into one of the most powerful forces in our lives, our deep, deep need to belong. We're social animals. And one of the best ways to make a habit stick is to connect it to the kind of tribe you want to be a part of.
I mean, just think about it for a second. We do this all the time without even realizing it. We pick up the slang, the opinions, and, the habits of the people we spend the most time with. That desire to fit in and be accepted is a huge driver of our behavior, and we can actually use it to our advantage.
So just how powerful is this pull? Well, one incredible study boiled it down to a single, pretty shocking number, 57%.
That's right. Your chance of becoming obese goes up by 57% if you have a close friend who becomes obese. Our friends' behaviors start to feel normal. So the lesson here is pretty clear, right? One of the biggest life hacks for building better habits is to simply join a group, a culture, where the behavior you want is the normal behavior.
So law number 3 challenges a myth we've all been sold, this idea that success is all about having heroic willpower.
But what if the real secret isn't about having more discipline, but just dealing with less friction?
You know, we're always told that if we just had more self-control, we could finally stop doing the things we don't want to do. But the research tells a different story. It turns out the people who seem really disciplined aren't actually fighting these epic internal battles all day. They're just smarter at designing their environment so they don't have to fight those battles in the first place.
And this is maybe the most powerful example of that idea. During the Vietnam War, a shocking number of American soldiers became addicted to heroin. But here's the crazy part. When they came back home, to a totally different environment, away from all the triggers of the war, 9 out of 10 of them just stopped, almost overnight. Now, compare that to a typical drug user who goes to rehab, gets clean, and then returns to the exact same environment with all the same old cues. Their relapse rate is a staggering 90%.
And this quote just nails it. The secret to self-control isn't being a superhero. It's making your good habits the path of least resistance and making your bad habits really inconvenient. It's about engineering a better environment, not just wishing for a stronger will.
And that brings us to our last law, number 4, which kind of closes the whole loop. Our brains are wired for one thing above all else: immediate rewards. For any habit to really stick, it has to feel good right now, not just, someday in the future.
This is basically the golden rule of how we operate. If an action gives us an immediate hit of pleasure, we're going to do it again. The big problem, of course, is that the rewards for our good habits like exercising or saving money are often way down the road. But the pleasure from our bad habits is usually instant. So the trick is to find a way to give yourself a little win right away when you do something good.
The paperclip strategy is such a great, simple way to do this. There was this young stockbroker who needed to make 120 sales calls every day. So he put 2 jars on his desk. One started with 120 paperclips in it. And after every single call, he just moved 1 paperclip over to the other jar. That little physical act, that feeling of moving the clip and seeing the pile grow, that was the immediate reward that made the habit satisfying and made it stick.
So, when you put all 4 of these laws together, you make it obvious, you make it attractive, you make it easy, and you make it satisfying, you start to realize that you have an unbelievable amount of power over your own behavior. You don't have to just be a passenger in your own life.
And really, this is the ultimate takeaway. You can design the world around you to make success the easiest possible outcome. You can put cues for good habits in your path. You can remove the friction that stops you from starting, and you can build in tiny rewards that keep you coming back. You get to be the architect.
And that's what I want to leave you with. Just take a look around you wherever you are right now. Based on everything we've talked about, what's the one tiny 1% change you could make to your space or your schedule that would nudge you onto a better path? Because that's where the journey to remarkable results really begins.